Hello, welcome to, I guess I'm going to call this an all-encompassing, all-in-one video on how to get into video gaming in 2026 and a little beyond, because this will be a video current for a little bit. I'm truly hoping you actually see this one. I'm going to do a very quick housekeeping. This video was supposed to be designed to help people, and it's why I've foolishly done it again and again and again, because tech issues are absolutely destroying it. No matter what I do, the video seems to work sometimes, but not other times. Like, the audio will go crackly and literally impossible to understand a word I'm saying, but then it'll function throughout the rest of the video. It's maddening, but I'm hoping this is finally fixed. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. Alongside, I guess another little bit of housekeeping is, hi, I'm Sky Fellowship. That's the name of the YouTube channel. I used to do YouTube a long time ago, but then mental health, physical health, and a lot of other things happened that basically I had to quit doing it. And I always wanted to continue helping people, but I never wanted this to become a job, essentially. Which is why, if you've got ads at any point in this video, they're not by me, they're not for me, they're not going to me, nothing like that. I've never monetized the channel. I will strongly recommend uBlock Origin, Sponsor Skip. Use those on Firefox, and I've heard great things about Brave browser. Never used it though myself, but that should be a way to get rid of any ads or anything. The footage that you're going to be seeing is of Super Smash Bros. Melee Ultimate, because with all of the millions and millions of problems trying to do this and chop and change between the different footage I need to show or anything, it's just been adding so many layers of headache when the video mightn't even work anyway. So this is going to be an all-in-one, like one and done. It's probably going to be over an hour long. I'm going to have to take breaks because I'm human and I'll need to drink every now and then. I've got all of my notes and everything written down on my phone, and I'm going to try to do timestamps essentially of where things are. So this is going to be the first timestamp. I'll say 2:05, and I need to obviously, this is the other thing, so I'll immediately change it, I guess, to like 2:15 is video start, because I need to actually write it down as I go so that I can then have this for later. So the first thing I'm going to start with is why get into gaming. If you've clicked on this video, you probably have a little bit of interest, but I don't know if you've searched for it, if it's just appeared or anything. I'm not famous, I don't have a huge reach or anything. I just firmly believe this is a great video to make, because I fully understand getting into gaming must be incredibly difficult compared to when I was a child, and you're talking about controllers that had like a couple of buttons. At most, it was 12 if you want to count every direction on a D-pad on a SNES controller. So why get into something that at this moment in time there's a lot of toxicity around, from bad business practices to awful people who, grifters essentially, trying to rage bait or anything with like, oh, how dare you not have an attractive woman that I want to bang in the game, or how dare you have people that I clearly can't relate to because I have absolutely no empathy. All of that bullcrap. There's so much toxicity around everything, there's so much negativity, there's so many problems. So why get into gaming? Well, there's a few reasons that I personally love this as my all-time favourite medium, ever since I was a child. Firstly, human beings, we like solving things, solving puzzles, and games allow us to do that. This is also, I think, the greatest way to tell a story. It's one of those annoying things where loads of people are like, video game stories are bad. Yeah, they used to be because of limitations, but now we're getting to the point where video game stories are so much better than TV, movies and books, because you can go into a cinema, into a theatre, and watch a movie with 4 people. That is so drastically different to playing a 4-player co-op game that has a deep, engrossing story where you're talking with your friends all the way through in the non-story parts as you're trying to figure out where the story's going, as you're trying to figure out teamwork and things. There's so many amazing avenues with just narrative and narrative choices that you can make in gaming that you just genuinely don't get in any other medium. So there's that, there's the puzzle solving, there's gaming can actually make you feel really, really good about yourself, believe it or not. There's, like, when you accomplish something that's been really difficult in a game, it's just amazing to be able to do it. You get that nice little dopamine hit, which is why I'm going to very quickly veer into a slightly negative side of things. People love to bring up video games and addiction. It's not so much that video games can be addictive. It's that if, like everything, you can have a coping mechanism, you can have unhealthy ones and healthy ones. With the way modern day life's going, it will be so easy to just throw yourself into only playing games and doing nothing else, because this is the one place where you choose what you see, essentially. You can avoid anything that is dealing with real-world geopolitical stuff. Gaming is just one of those things that if you go into it unprepared, it can be a problem. It's why I also, very quickly before leaving this negative space, I'm going to say, don't get into free-to-play games. This is actually why I'm kind of making this video. I want to try and present you with, and I understand it's expensive, trust me, I'm going to get all of that, but free-to-play games, the top 5 games of 2025 are the exact same as 2024, and most of them are free-to-play, yet they've made more money and had more player time than anything out there, and it's kind of gross, and it's because all of those things are designed to be predatory and to make you kind of want the next shiny and just like, hey, buy yourself some dopamine, buy a reward and stuff like that. There's some really nasty parts of that, and I'm not crapping on the likes of Fortnite. I used to play Fortnite, I used to be really good at it. I myself have actually fallen into a problem with a video game called Destiny, where I genuinely played way too much of that game, put way too much money into it as well, trying to get stuff, and then the developer turned around and after saying, oh yeah, everything's going to carry forward for 10 years, nope, didn't. So I was like, wow, that was it was already time wasted and money wasted, but that really was a kick in the teeth. So anyway, trying to get back to some more positive things, although I am approaching the end of essentially this chapter of why get into gaming. Gaming can definitely do a lot of things that no other medium can, and I'm going to move on to, and this will be, I'll say it, 6 minutes and 40 for the next thing. Real professional here, but again, if you know the problems, like if you knew everything that's went wrong with this, I'm frazzled, to say the least. I've been working on this for weeks, if not months, at this point, and hopefully someone is actually finally seeing and hearing this. So, I'm going to move on to what to buy. I personally think, so I'm a PC gamer, and I love my PC, but I also hate my PC. Anyone who has a PC might understand this. PCs have so many problems, so many tech issues, so many marvelous little bugs, from operating systems, stuff being pushed on you, to all sorts of other things that you never asked for. PC gaming is expensive, it's problematic, it's so time exhausting, it's just, yeah. But the Nintendo Switch 2, it's a current console. It's literally inside its first 7 months at the time of recording this, so inside its first year. It has a massive back catalogue of loads of Nintendo games that you can play in a kind of a free updated thing, and some of them have less free updates. Some of them, like some games like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you have to pay to get the upgraded Switch 2 version, where with Smash Brothers, like this, at the moment there's no actual upgrade, but at the same time it's still an upgrade, because this game used to struggle to run with all of the chaos that you're currently seeing on screen. I picked all of this for a reason. It's to kind of show off the fact that games can be a sensory overload getting into them, but all of this that you're seeing takes massive computing power, and the Switch 1 it couldn't do it, so it would struggle. It would really struggle on fights this intense, so it's why I actually figured this would be decent background footage and noise. Also, I can have the computer doing all of this, so I truly can just focus on watching this freaking software, trying to make sure that nothing's going wrong, and check my notes. So, the Switch 2, you get everything that you need to be able to actually play Day 1. With the exception of buying a game, if you don't get the Mario Kart bundle, which I fear they're actually starting to discontinue. This is another thing as well. Getting into gaming in this year is especially difficult because prices are rising from RAM going up and GPU costs going up on the PC side of things as well, and it's also affecting console stuff. And the Switch 2 might be getting a price rise, but it might just be that they're discontinuing the Mario Kart bundle. Honestly, if you can find the Mario Kart bundle after watching this, if I manage to convince you, yeah, this is how I want to get into gaming, buy the Mario Kart bundle, because seriously, I don't know if there's ever going to be a better one, or even a comparable one, like, you know, even one that's close to it. So you get everything that you need in the box to be able to play it. You don't need a TV, you don't need a monitor. If you've got a TV or a monitor, great, you can connect it up and use it as an actual console, not just a handheld. But this is part of the recommendation, is the fact that it is a handheld. You can take it everywhere with you, so you can get little bits of practice in here and there. It's how I actually got really good at games when I was a young kid, because I used to just sit and play Zelda and Mario Land and so many other things on the original Game Boy. The Switch 2, for the annoyance that every single thing is a subscription, Nintendo actually does one of the better subscriptions. Nintendo Switch Online, NSO for short. It's only something like I think £20 for a year, but you can find cheaper codes online easily. Sites like CD Keys, I know it's rebranded to Loaded recently, but you can get codes usually for cheap. You can also, if you actually have a bunch of people that you already know with a Switch 2 who have a family plan who don't mind putting you on it, you can do it that way for cheap. And NSO is one of the best subscription services, personally, because you get games from, I'll try to remember everything. The TurboGrafx 16 is the one that I can't remember if that is available or not. So I'm going to say, let's just pretend that that doesn't exist, just in case I'm completely wrong. Maybe it's just that there was a rumour that they were going to add it or something, but at this moment in time, I believe you can get Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. Yes, all three of those really are different things. However, there's some Game Boy Color games that are just Game Boy games, but in colour. You get Mega Drive or Sega Genesis, depending on the region that you're in. It was called Mega Drive in my country. It's called Genesis in America. I don't know about Japan or anywhere else in the world. You get Nintendo Entertainment System, so NES or NES, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, SNES or SNES. I prefer NES and SNES, but I've tried to. Anyway, you get Nintendo 64, you get GameCube, and I think that's everything that's currently available. Among those apps, you get an absolute massive library of games, from beat-em-ups to fighting games to racing games to strategy games to RPGs to platformers to Metroidvanias. These are a lot of terms I'm about to cover, because if you are not completely new to gaming, then none of that's going to make any sense to you, and I fully get that. So I'm going to actually move on to the next chapter now, and I will quickly write down for my own purposes 1140. Because the next thing that I want to bring up is I'm reading my notes, so I've read out what I wanted to say. It was all of those confusion things. I have to leave things like this in because, again, the tech issues. Apologies. Controls, like anything that you want to see for this. I'm going to actually open the menu just to be able to show off a brief example of a controller. When getting into gaming, I'd already mentioned this. When I started, it was ABXY, LR, Start Select, and the D-pad, because my first kind of console, I'd played games on personal computers, on Amigas, on Commodores. I hadn't played a NES at that point, so my first kind of actual console that I got real time on was a SNES, and it was a much easier, less complex controller. When getting into gaming, you are going to have to learn your controller. Now, you don't actually need a Pro Controller. When you buy the Switch 2, it actually comes with the Joy-Con, which you can remove. They are the controllers. You can even use them as two controllers by splitting them in half. It's a very cool little thing, but for the most part, I would recommend, if you're okay spending about $750, and I don't know what that is in dollars-wise, maybe $850 at that point, I would recommend the Switch 2, NSO. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild will be the game that I recommend. I'll get to that in a minute. Well, probably more than a minute. And a Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller. The Pro Controller here has a bunch of buttons that you are going to have to slowly get to learn. ZL, ZR, which you might be able to see at the top, L and R, those are what's known as the shoulder buttons. So they'll be pretty much where, I'm trying to remember the name of fingers now, I really can't. Basically the one beside your thumb. You'll rest those on the shoulders. So you'll always be able to push those four buttons. Your thumbs will then use the big black L and big black R that's on the middle of the screen are actually the left and right analog. You'll use those for moving around and moving the camera in games. The ABXY, they're considered face buttons, and you use those for a multitude of things. The D-pad, the bottom left, the thing that looks like a little plus symbol, basically that is a D-pad, or directional pad for short, so up, down, left, right. You'll use that sometimes to actually move in games, sometimes just for menu stuff. You've then got a plus and a minus, which they'll be pause and options, like menu option stuff. You've got a home button, which takes you home, a screenshot button, which takes screenshots or videos of your games, and a C button, which is for the chat feature, which you have to actually pay for separately, so I don't even need to really cover that. And one of the biggest things about getting into gaming and getting better at it, because, okay, I do need to do a quick sidebar. I'll come back to game difficulty in a bit. You're supposed to be bad at these things. Video gaming is a skill just like everything else. You wouldn't expect to be able to go to a pottery class and make a vase straight away. You wouldn't expect to be able to go to an art class and draw a masterpiece straight away. Video gaming, like everything else, is a skill. You have to develop muscle memory. You have to develop memory. and that's moving back, transitioning back to the controller. You will have to learn what all of the buttons do and where they are. Every game's different, but the Nintendo Switch 2 allows you to actually customize your controller. And the main reason that I'm saying about the Pro Controller, you get 2 extra buttons called GL and GR, which are on the back of the controller, where all buttons should be, because that's where most of your fingers go. Sorry, that's a side rant. And basically, don't just use the game the way it tells you to. Like, if you are noticing you're struggling to move the camera and move your character with both analogs, and then, for example, Breath of the Wild, the run button is the B button, which is the very bottom face button, and jump is the X button, the top face button. So running, jumping, and moving in a direction, and the camera in a direction, kind of requires a claw movement, and personally, my arthritic hands can't stand that. So what I would always do, I will basically make B and X my GL and GR button, because all it does, and I can actually show it off here, you basically click on it. So I'm going to click the B button, and I'm going to click the X button, and there. That's all you have to do to reassign just the 2 back buttons. This is seriously one of the easiest ways to ever do this. So happy with Nintendo and their accessibility options sometimes. They're not the best, but they're getting better. And that would allow me to hold the back left button to run, the back right button to jump, and still move both the analogs and everything. And it means that if I have to like run, jump and move into one attack, that's still easier, because attack would be Y, which is right between B and X, so at least that way I'm still only having to focus on the right analog and 1 face button. This is why more face buttons should be on the back. If all controllers give us 4 buttons at the back, and then the 4 face buttons instead were just like save, load, like menu stuff you never use in the game, it would be brilliant. It's why I also, because of a game called Elden Ring, personally think that your shoulder buttons, if you can practice and make your shoulder buttons your attack buttons in everything, it works in first-person and third-person shooters, it works in heavy action games, like I've just said, Elden Ring. It's, honestly, I've kind of retrained my brain so that I always make those my attack buttons now, because even I, who've been playing games for all this time, I'm constantly learning. Right. And I think with that, my controller section is actually done. On the plus side, because I've recorded this so many times, it might seem like I'm rushing through it, but I think it's because I've managed to not waffle as much. Believe it or not, the thing I'm about to mark down, so let's say 17:15, this topic on the first time I did this was about 32 minutes. And it's not that I've cut a load of stuff that's useful, it's that I've really managed to fine-tune my own thoughts, I think. So anyway, I'm bragging about that, which is actually putting me off. So the next thing would be video game language that I want to bring up. This is something else, so at the 17:30 mark, we're starting this chapter. Getting into video games, one of the hardest things, it really is like no other, because if I was to tell you, hey, I've never seen a movie before, would you have to then sit there and tell me the entire history of cinema? Because I kind of have to do that with gaming, and it's not that literal, but if I watch a movie, chances are I'm not going to miss anything, having never seen it before. If I tell you as a non-gamer, presumably, who is watching I can't speak today, listening to this, about Waterfall, are you going to assume they're just talking about a waterfall, or, oh yeah, there's secrets behind there, because yeah, that's video game language. We've been taught since the 80s that waterfalls house secrets. We've been taught so many things, and it's why my game recommendations are actually going to be based around the games that I think will catch you up to speed the fastest, because this is a part of why I actually recommend the NSO as well for all the old games, because it means that you can actually go back and, on top of trying different genres for much cheaper than buying £50, £60 games, you'll be able to get a taste of what you like, but you'll also be able to get some of that knowledge that we've all grew up with, because there is so much of it that comes from one game to another game, and usually it's because of homages, but sometimes it's just a case of that's the way we do things, and it really is that simple. It's the whole, why do you do that? Oh, it's because we've always done it. Well, that's kind of what gaming's fell into the trap of. Waterfalls always hide secrets because everyone expects there to be a secret behind a waterfall, and if therefore you put a waterfall in your video game and it doesn't have a secret, then people complain, because why isn't there a secret? You see what I mean? There's loads of little things like that with gaming that you'll have to kind of learn and catch up to speed, and if I can get all of this sorted with videos, I would love to go through and actually bring up some of the finer points of those. But for now, I truly do think Breath of the Wild being your first starting point this is essentially, I don't so much want to go into a new chapter, but I guess I'll write 20 minutes for Breath of the Wild talk. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is personally one of my all-time favourite games. It has a direct sequel called Tears of the Kingdom, and I think they are two of the best jobs for teaching you how to play modern day gaming. Start with Breath of the Wild. I understand a lot of what I'm about to say might seem daunting, but I'm going to try to explain, and this is where I will be slowing down because I need to actually take my time with this a little bit. I have played games for close to 36 years. I'm nearing 40. I absolutely love video games, as I've already said, and still, with all of my knowledge, with all of my expertise, with all of the fact that I'm genuinely good at hard games, I put about 200 hours in Breath of the Wild on just my first playthrough, and 250 hours on Tears of the Kingdom. And then I've done a second and third playthrough of Breath of the Wild, and a second playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom, and now both of them are sitting at about 450 hours of playtime. There are so many things that you can do in that game that even with my expertise, it took me that long. You learning, it might be a case of add 100 hours, and I understand all of that might seem daunting, but this is where the cost of video gaming actually does start paying for itself eventually, because again, a movie, a book, TV show, I've never watched One Piece because there's over 1,000 and odd episodes I think at this point. I think there are some video games out there that are longer than the entirety of One Piece, and you pay one thing, you pay like £50, £60 for it, and it'll last you for ages. Now, I understand you may not want to spend that much time with a single piece of media at this moment in time. It may sound so surreal, and it's like, why do people do this? Unfortunately, this is the part of gaming where you do have to play it. You truly do. You have to play it to experience, because it's the hardest thing to really get a feel for from secondhand stories when it's so alien to you. But what I can tell you is, I'll try to avoid spoilers, but with Breath of the Wild, games like that, Zelda games, you typically have dungeons and side quests and main quests and activities and stuff. Just doing all of the side shrines, which is over 100, I'll stick to that for lack of spoilers. Just doing the dungeons, which are technically not dungeons, they're divine beasts. There's a handful of those. There's, I think, something like 25 main quests. It's been a while since I actually checked it, and a bunch of side quests. And I did all the shrines, all the side quests, all the dungeons, and then the main quest. But if I'd got sick at any point, and this is why I'm recommending Breath of the Wild as much, I don't even think you need to beat what's considered the tutorial area called the Great Plateau. You can kind of just go straight to the end and beat the boss and roll credits. Now, in video games, rolling credits is slightly different to a movie. Some games, it really does signify the end. Some games, it signifies the beginning of the end, and you open up an end game. With Zelda, in this case, it is an end thing. So at any point, if you've done, say, 50 shrines, if you've done 2 beasts, if you've done half of the quests, and you're like, you know what, I have really enjoyed this, but I need to stop playing this game. I've already put too much time into it. You can just run straight to the boss and finish it off. It can change your ending and things like that. There's loads of different story mechanics that actually change depending on your actions and when you do them in that game. Another reason why I'm recommending it, because it also encourages repeat playthroughs. And it means that if you do want to do a repeat playthrough, maybe the first time you do want to do everything, but the second time it's like, right, well, I'll skip all the side quests, or right, I'll skip all the shrines. You know, there's loads of different ways like that that you can create self-imposed challenges. Gaming truly can be one of those things that you put so much time into that you actually, I'm not going to say you make money from it, I mean you can do obviously, but it's like, again, when you work out, if I'd seen the equivalent of that many movies at the cinema for the length of time that that game cost me, I'd have spent $2,000, you know, it's one of those. I'm going to take a very quick break for a drink and also to compose my thoughts. I apologise for having to leave these in, but I think I'm about ready to change topic, and I just want to double check. Yeah, so at the 24:05 mark, I'm going to say about, I'm kind of going to segue. I'm going to do a little bit more on Zelda, purely because I'd just thought of something that's now immediately gone. I know it was about the Great Plateau, I know it was about the tutorial. Oh yeah, that was it. As much as I'm saying it's the best tutorial in gaming, it's actually, technically the entire game is, because this is another reason why I'm saying if you can get into it. Every hour spent in Breath of the Wild, for me personally, made Tears of the Kingdom better, because almost every single thing that you learn in that first game is actually applicable to the second. You can use that knowledge in different ways. So it's another way of learning the game and letting the game teach you, which it does such an exceptional job of. I maybe should actually say an example. Literally at the start of the game, you walk forward and you see an apple next to a fire, and you pick the apple up, and the apple's a baked apple. So instantly, because you've already walked past apple trees, you know if I put apples beside fire, it's going to cook them, and by cooking them, it actually gives you more health back. It's loads of little micro things like that that game does that just teaches you. But, so I will now actually move on to the next thing, the next chapter. But not every game has a great way to do that. Has great language tools, essentially, great ways to teach you things. But some games have what's called accessibility modes. And an accessibility mode is something else that you're going to have to look into and learn how to do things with, essentially, because accessibility is different for everyone. I'm visually impaired, I have arthritis, so for me, my accessibility needs, I usually increase the font size, the UI size. UI is user interface. It's basically what you can kind of see on the screen here with Smash Brothers, where all of the different percentages are. That's kind of a UI. It's for all of the characters, but that's a UI, that's a base understanding, essentially. And so I turn the font size up, the UI up, and there's something known as button mashing, where you basically bash the crap out of one of the buttons. So let's say a car has overturned and I'm playing as Spider-Man and I have to use my hero strength to pick up a car. I'd have to bash the Y button the entire time. I'd change that to hold the Y button. Don't ever let anyone, especially tryhards, tell you that you have to play games on the hardest difficulty, suffering, looking it all up yourself, figuring it all out yourself. No. Games are supposed to be fun. If you get stuck at any point, look up guides, find YouTube videos, find communities, which is going to be another topic, but find places where you can ask people questions, where you can try to get better at things, because all of this, human history is a rule, is about learning from the mistakes of others. It's why people used to eat plants, and then when they died, it's like, oh, we know not to eat those plants. Don't just do all of this yourself. You will actually want to try and find some gaming friends. Even if you only play solo games, you'll want to have people you can talk to, because like with everything, it's nice to have the interest shared. But don't let anyone ever tell you don't use the accessibility modes or anything like that. From simple things as changing the difficulty to changing where your controls go, all of these can be considered accessibility. There's games that allow you to turn invincibility on, so you literally can't die if you're struggling on a specific part of a game. Even if you don't want to beat the entire game, sometimes they'll let you just turn invincibility mode on so you can beat the one thing that's ruining you. And then you can always come back later. If you replay the game, suddenly your skills might have improved to the point it's like, I can't believe I needed to cheat to actually beat this. And I say cheat. Cheat is one of those words that's got a negative connotation. Video games cheats are good. Cheats can be fun. So never ever never assume that I'm essentially talking down and saying, oh, I can't believe people might want to cheat. No. Accessibility aids are kind of like the world's best cheats, so use them. If a game has it, like, let yourself use them, because even if it's just for practicing something so that you can get better to beat it without dying, you know, it's this whole thing, this whole medium is about getting better. You're supposed to be bad at games. You truly are. You're supposed to be bad at them, and you're supposed to get better. There are so many game genres that I'm bad at, and I've quit playing, not because I'm bad, but because I don't enjoy enough about the game to continue. And this is another thing that I'd essentially segue into, and I'll write down for 2840 for difficulty discussion. I like hard games, and some of the games I'm going to recommend are actually considered really hard games, but I'm recommending you them because I think they're hard, but they're fair. They do a great job of teaching you things, and the only way that you'll know if those sorts of games are for you is to try them. Don't just let the difficulty put you off. If it turns out you love the combat, you love the story, you love the gameplay, but you're really bad at it, you'll get better. I understand some people like instant results, and some people want to have thousands of hours of experience with these games in the first 5 minutes. That's not the way life works. I understand if you have that mindset, you may want to completely drop the game. Never gonna hear a complaint from me. You know, like, everyone's different. You spend your time how you want to spend your time. If that is the only reason, though, I would say look up guides, as I say. Like, try to talk to people. Hell, sometimes there might be a co-op mode. Just do something where you can get a little bit of help. Learning from other players is definitely one of the best ways to get better. Because if that truly is the only thing stopping you from experiencing something you otherwise would be enjoying, that's the one thing that can be fixed. If you're hating the story, you can't fix that. You have no power to fix that. If you're hating the gameplay, you clearly just don't like that gameplay. But if it's just that you're dying too many times and not making any progress, work a little at a time. Figure out what's killing you. Is it that you don't know the pattern of the boss? If so, just stare at the boss for a little bit. Just spend the entire session not trying to kill the boss, but trying to survive the boss. And then once you get to the point of, hey, I'm actually dodging all of these attacks, now I need to see how I attack it. So I've already learned how to dodge the attacks, now I'll start attacking and bam, I've killed it. You know, do little and often. Just do whatever works for you, essentially. I think I'm done with that. So moving on to, at the 30-minute mark, well, I'll say 31 minute because by the time I've done all of this, video game communities. I've already brought up a couple little things. I'm going to recommend Kinda Funny Games Daily if you want to get into video game news. They deal with everything from the new releases to, hey, these people have just been laid off and fired because of this AI reason and stuff like that. They're a great resource for that. They are an amazing community. They are very, very progressive. Have a lot of positivity around queerness. They have trans people in the community constantly posting up how the transitioning's going via super chats. There's so much diversity on there. It's unbelievable. I absolutely love Kinda Funny Games. They, on top of doing news, they do streams on playing games. They do very deep dive reviews, which are excellent resources for learning how to, like, once you learn what game genres you like, you then start finding other people who have your opinion. So even if it turns out there's only one person on Kinda Funny whose opinion you trust with games because they align with yours, that doesn't mean that the other people are like worthless. You'll still get information out of that. I strongly recommend MinMax and Indian Informer is another great one. They're both smaller podcasts that don't do weekly, they don't do daily stuff. They do weekly stuff. There's Easy Allies, which is also very queer forward, has an amazing trans woman that I absolutely love on it. And Spawn on Me is another great one. And I think I'll limit it to that because I could mention 27 things. I try to follow indie places essentially because I'm not trying to crap on IGN. They're decent for what they are, but they're a mega corporation and there's so many problems around all of that stuff. So IGN's good for resources, but it's not something where I personally find myself ever engaging in the community because there's a lot of toxicity in the comments section, to say the least. And with that, I think I'm finally up to what is going to be the last chapter for now. Which is basically the game recommendations. Because obviously, I've already so I'll say 33 minutes for game recommendations. I've already recommended Breath of the Wild, but I want to cover other franchises, other genres, other games. I'm no doubt going to miss some things, so before I start all of this, I'm going to say if this video has at all been helpful, great. It's what it was designed to do. I hope this is the one that finally goes up, because I do think the hour-and-a-half long one was much better, because I really did deep dive into some stuff, and I've definitely had some frustration in my voice having to do this yet again, but at the same time, I think I've managed to keep it more concise, so I'm happy with that. But if there's anything at all, if you're not a new gamer and you think this would be helpful for people, put it in the comments. Hopefully I can actually create a Discord server, because it would be amazing if I could get a bunch of people who don't know how to play games with some people who do. And I'm not saying like we'd go full teaching role or anything, but it would just be a good place to foster a community where it's like, hey, no one here is going to crap on you for not knowing how to do something. We understand you're completely new at this, so post up, like, talk about this, and we'll see if we can guide you through things. It would just be nice to do. So yeah, if there's anything at all that you want to add to this, post it in the comments, even your recommendations. But for now, I'm going to start with cozy games, because it's the thing I actually forgot the last time I did this. Because I've recommended the Switch 2, Animal Crossing New Horizon is the obvious slam dunk for a cozy game. It's one of the most beginner-friendly games of all time. It'll teach you a lot about different genres as well, believe it or not. It's not just about cozy things, it'll teach you quite a few things, and it's a nice relaxing way where you don't really have any way to feel, so you can slowly get to grips with your controller and your controls and learning all of that stuff. So Animal Crossing New Horizon. There's on the Switch 2 there is Minecraft and Stardew Valley. I think it's getting a Switch 2 update as well. The Minecraft Switch 2 port or Switch port is not supposed to be that amazing. I would kind of say stay clear, but if you really want to get into it, it still is a good beginner place. Stardew Valley has a lot of hype around it. I don't feel it's that great for beginners. I think it's more of a once you learn how to play these games, because there's some pretty harsh combat things in that game, to say the least, and some time-sensitive stuff as well. Whereas with Animal Crossing, because the timer is real-world time, you're not really that time sensitive, because I mean shops close at a certain time every day, but you can actually change them depending on your work and sleep schedule, so that's pretty cool. At least I believe you can. I think that got added. I seem to remember it, so that would be my cozy recommendation. One of the harder games I want to recommend, it's not available yet on the Switch 2, but it is coming at some point. Elden Ring. I always wanted to get into Souls games because I love hard, difficult games, but I didn't feel the Dark Souls games respected my time at all. Elden Ring is one that I feel is actually a very fair game. You can over-level, which is simply a term by being more powerful than you should be in gaming terms, so you can actually make it easier if you want to. It still is hard, like you can't absolutely over-level everything, but you can still do it to get through the basics at the start while you actually start learning how to play the game. It's got pretty decent checkpoint systems around the bosses so that you're not getting screwed over if you die, you're not having to run all the way back. It's got some pretty fair things in it, and the whole point is just learning the patterns of the boss and learning how to do your moves, essentially. There's loads of different things. Again, just take it slow and steady, and I truly do think Elden Ring is a great place to start if you want to get into like a kind of... It's not an RPG, but unfortunately everything's an RPG. It's essentially a character RPG, because there's a... not so much a skill tree, but you level up your skills, you level up your stat points when you actually gain enough... it's not souls, runes in that game. When you level up enough runes, it's definitely one that has a lot of inspiration from a lot of different games, and it's one that it doesn't do a great job of teaching you some of the secret stuff. For example, there's secret walls all over the place in that game, and I've played that game and I just knew straight away, oh yeah, that's clearly a secret wall, because it was so clearly coded for me, who's played millions of hours of games. But I was playing it with a friend, and they're like, what do you mean that's so clearly a secret wall? It just looks like a wall. And it's like trying to convey, well, the way the lighting's set up, with the way they clearly designed it so that you're not supposed to look over there. It's supposed to just be, oh, that's just a wall. That's what drew my eye to, that's clearly a secret wall. And sure enough, I ran up, hit it, and the wall disappeared. So it doesn't do an amazing job of teaching you where all of it is, but it still does do a good job, I feel, of teaching you, at least for that genre. So I've covered cozy, I've covered Souls games. Sorry, I'm currently looking on my list for the next one. RPG, actual traditional RPG. So RPG stands for role-playing game, and on a technicality, you would think Zelda would be that because you're playing the role of Link through the game. No. Gamer terminology is annoying, and an RPG is usually reserved for things that have stats and skill trees and level ups and stuff like that, but one of the more traditional things that people see is when it's a turn-based one, but even then there's different kinds of turn-based, because there's strategy, there's computer RPGs like a Baldur's Gate, which isn't available on the Switch 2 if it ever is, though. I don't know if it will be, because it struggles to even run on PCs, but if it ever hits Switch 2, Baldur's Gate 3 is an absolute slam dunk recommend. But for now, I'm going to say Octopath Traveler 0, which is a JRPG like Clair Obscur, despite the fact that Clair Obscur is French. It's a whole thing, again, gamer terminology, and what that means is it's actually turn-based. I feel if Clair ever comes to the Switch 2, it's not a beginner-friendly one, like at all. It's a genuinely difficult game, and I think playing Octopath is a great way to get into the franchise, like into the genre, so you can see if you'd like Clair. Octopath is a prequel to the first and second game. You don't need to have played them. Octopath has a lot of decent accessibility because it teaches you how to play the game by giving you weaknesses for enemies, but the weaknesses are all question marks, and you have to slowly chip away at them to discover what hurts what enemy, and it means you've constantly got the visual reminder, so you don't have to remember thousands of things all at once, which even I struggle to do, who's played all of these so many times. It's one of the things that I'm so glad that that game does, and I wish more turn-based RPGs would do it. It's got a city building aspect to this one. It's got some lengthy story to it. It'll probably take you about 100 hours as a total beginner. I think even myself, I've managed about 80 hours for the main game, I believe. I could probably speedrun it in 60, but I didn't want to. I like taking my time and grinding in games like that. Grinding just essentially means doing more fights to level up, essentially. But even then, after doing all of that, there's still an end game, so there's still a lot more time I could sink into it. For strategy, I would go for Fire Emblem Three Houses, on top of the fact that there is a huge sequel coming out soon that looks absolutely exceptional. Not every game with a title is a direct sequel, by the way, I should say that, because Fire Emblem Three Houses was followed by a game called Fire Emblem Engage. Engage is not a good game in my opinion, and it has nothing really to do with Three Houses. It's one of those things where it's like, just because something's Star Wars doesn't mean it's a direct Star Wars sequel, you know. Fire Emblems like that, you need to look into which ones have which stories you care about, but Three Houses is a great starting point because you don't need to know anything about the franchise at all. It's a great way to get into strategy RPGs. There's also Final Fantasy Tactics, I've heard is brilliant, but I personally, I find it a bit archaic. I've heard the remake is better, but it's one of those, I have grown up on loads of games, and now modern gaming tendencies have kind of ruined a lot of the older games for me, because I'm like, oh my god, I forgot how much games used to really waste my time as a child. And it was fine, because I had tons of it, but now it's like, I don't want to be doing something where it's like, oh, I've just played an hour-and-a-half mission and failed, I guess I replay the entire thing, yay! And there's games like that happen in the genre, and Fire Emblem, I can see it doesn't do that. Fire Emblem lets you save things, and you can change difficulty levels. Fire Emblem's actually a great one for accessibility, because it used to always be a permadeath series where your characters, once they died, that was it, despite it being a video game, and they allowed you to simply turn that off, and it makes it much more approachable for people. I strongly recommend it if it's your first time getting into the franchise. Survival horror. It's not currently available on the Switch 2 at time of recording, but it will be. They're making Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9 for the Switch 2. I don't know how they connect as a trilogy yet, or if that's been an abandoned plan. It was, I believe, supposed to be, but Resident Evil 9 looks nothing like 8 or 7. 7 and 8 are direct sequels to each other. You don't really need to know anything at all from the earlier Resident Evil games. There are references and characters in some of them that you'll not know, but it won't ruin it. And it's why I'm actually going to say it, as much as you would think to start with 7. 7 was an okay game, but it was... the highs were great, the lows were really bad. Whereas Resident Evil 8, I was shocked by how good that was. It's got some of the best combat, some of the best puzzles, some of the best bosses, some of the best locations, some of the best character acting. The story is a little basic. It's just, for lack of spoilers for 7, because if you do want to play 7, I fully understand it. I'm just going to say 8 is a husband searching for his wife and child. That, I think, if you don't want to play 7 at all, that's what you'll get from 8, and you'll be fine with it. If you do want to play 7, you'll understand a bit more about the relationship of the main characters. But I truly do think Resident Evil 8 Village is a great starting point for survival horror. It's not too difficult, it's got fair checkpoint system, it's got a lot of gore in it, but I don't even feel like it's got a lot of particularly scary scares. It's pretty decent horror as well. It's kind of tame, but it does a good job, at least for me personally. I'm going to move on to Rogue games, which I'm dropping it to Rogue because we as a community are trying to fix slowly our annoying names for genres, but Rogue is short for roguelite or roguelike. You don't need to know the difference, and this is the argument here. The people who technically do need to know the difference already know the difference, and everyone else doesn't until they get into them, so I'm just going to call them Rogues. Hades won. You might have heard of it. It won Game of the Year. It was actually my Game of the Year that year as well. 2020, I believe. It was exceptional. Got one of the best stories I've played in any game, let alone a Rogue. It was the first real Rogue to have a great story. But the gameplay, I loved it, but as soon as I rolled credits, I was done. Hades 2, I rolled credits and I kept playing that game again and again and again until I got every last thing I could actually get in that game. The story is terrible, at least for me personally. I was super disappointed with how it went. Super basic, super bare bones. I just didn't enjoy it at all, and I did play the full version where the full story's there. This isn't one of those, because the game did come out in early access where you played through it and it wasn't all there. I played through everything, didn't like the story. But that gameplay, yeah, Hades 2 is one of my all-time favourite games. It's not even close. It's so good. It fixes every problem I had with Hades 1. It is one of the most playable games I've found in a long time. It is always a game where, just to break the veil a little bit, because again, this is for people who aren't into games, rogue games have a different progression system than every other kind of game. You're going to die a lot and it's going to feel like you're not progressing. You are progressing, but you're progressing with what's essentially meta progression, and by getting better meta progression you'll actually see the results in your actual progression. It's a weird system. I personally love it. It makes games very replayable, and I can honestly recommend Hades 2 for just the sheer fun of it. The music, the acting, so much of it is exceptional. It's just, again, I was let down by the story is all. I would also recommend Binding of Isaac. However, that comes with a caveat. It's very gross, very gory, and it's a very, very, very biblical story based around someone's actual trauma growing up in a, I think, Catholic house. And basically, he used the game as a means to express that, and if that's something you want to avoid with gaming, I fully get it. But at the same time, Binding of Isaac, when Breath of the Wild came out, I've already said how much time I put into it. Breath of the Wild was second on my Switch by the third month I had the console, because as soon as I finished Breath of the Wild, I put Binding of Isaac on. I'd always wanted to get into it. I'd always struggled to get into it because of how many different versions there were, and the Switch 2 is getting a complete version, like with everything, which is another reason why I'm bringing it up. I put like 400, 500 hours into that game. It is so much fun, and there is so much to do. And because a run on games like that take like 20-30 minutes, that the 500 hours is just whenever I had 30 minutes to play something, boop, play, go. And another reason with the Switch 2, you can actually put the console in sleep mode essentially, so it turns the game off. It's brilliant for accessibility needs as well. I'm nearly done, which is good, because I'm starting to need food, drink, and a bunch of other stuff. A bunch of other things that make me human. Where's the rest of my list? Where's it gone? There we go. I'm going to say Metroidvanias, which essentially are side-scrolling action platformers with a lot of combat. Named after Metroid and Castlevania, Metroidvania. You'll get some of these games on the Nintendo Switch Online. Some of the Metroid games are up, and Metroid Zero Mission might be a great place to start for free, but I personally think, as much as people are saying it's one of the most difficult games, Hollow Knight Silksong, more so than Hollow Knight, despite it being a sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong is one of the best games for teaching you how to play that kind of game I've ever experienced. I didn't need to check a guide to 100% it. I did check for like a couple little side things I missed because I'd either picked them up and died and then forgot to go pick them up again. But for the most part, I think I got like 97.5% of that game without needing to check a guide. And for me, that is actually impressive for me. I was stunned by that. I'm like, okay, so I genuinely just did that. And it's because the game at no point makes it feel like it's impossible. It teaches you so well how to find its secrets, how to find all of the stuff like that. It's a game where, as long as you play with a defensive mindset, like what I was saying earlier, observing the bosses, learning the patterns, learning when you can attack, it's never unfair. It's difficult, but it's never unfair, and it's a great place, I think, to start, and also a great way to find out if you can actually play difficult games. It more so than Elden Ring Erdtree. Erdtree's the DLC. I realised I forgot to mention that earlier. I think the Switch 2 version is going to be called Elden Ring Tarnished Edition. At the moment, it's currently delayed. I'm going to essentially end with Smash Brothers is great and fun and all that, but I wouldn't recommend this to a beginner gamer purely because this is just pure chaos, and this is all about multiplayer, and it's getting into party fighters at that point, and you might want to get into fighting games before party fighters. It's a whole thing. Again, I might do more videos. So instead, I think I'm finally done with, I want to bring up one more kind of RPG, and then Donkey Kong. And there is actually a segue. So there's another kind of RPG, which basically Western RPG. It's what your Elder Scrolls games, so Oblivion, Skyrim. Skyrim, I think, is the only one of these games I'm about to mention that's available on the Switch too. Starfield, Fallout 3, New Vegas. You might actually be into the Fallout TV series, and hopefully we get remasters of them, and hopefully they hit the Switch too. They would be good places to start, but I'm not the biggest fan of that kind of RPG. It is all personal preference. It's just those are more about the side quest and the main quest, and a lot of times most people will say the same. It's like no one really beats these games. You just play until you've had your fill, and some people do. I have actually beat Starfield. It's the only one that I've managed to beat, and I actually don't recommend it. It's just, it wasn't for me. But I wanted to at least mention that kind of RPG because it's where you're going to see a lot of skill trees, which is what brings me on to Donkey Kong. Skill trees are something that are in almost every game now. One of the biggest problems with modern day gaming is everything's a roguelike and everything is an RPG. Are common sayings for a reason, and Donkey Kong kind of proves the common saying because Donkey Kong is a platformer. It's a great game that I want to recommend for some not great reasons, but I'll get onto that. Not to sound mysterious, it's a great game that I want to recommend because it's got a skill tree in it, so it'll actually teach you about skill trees. It's got a rogue mode, granted it's a DLC, but it's also a platformer that's just a genuinely charming, fun and heartwarming platformer. But the other reason I'm recommending it, I've managed to avoid talking about the tech side of things for a little bit. Getting into gaming, one of the hardest things is literally knowing if you can focus on everything. I mean, everything that's going on the screen right now, I get is full chaos. But for me, I'm so used to this, it's unbelievable. But for other people, there's so many warnings where it comes up, hey, you've been playing for an hour or two, you might want to take a break. People can get motion sickness, they can get nausea, they can get eye strain, they can get migraines. Usually made worse by when technology isn't running smoothly, and Donkey Kong, despite the Switch 2 having a lot more power, Donkey Kong is one of those games that you will experience severe frame dips. Basically, frame rate in a video game is the more frames, the higher the number, the smoother a game looks and feels, and it's less jarring on your eyes. Donkey Kong Bonanza, there's so much happening on that game at any one time. The game looks like it's stuttering and shaking, and it can really hurt. It's why I actually recommend that for both positive and negative reasons. If it turns out you're super sensitive to it, you know that you need to look up whenever buying a new game, what's the frame rate like, does it run, are there any problems. There's sites like Digital Foundry is a great resource for this as well, because it can completely ruin an experience for you. It really can. It can ruin it for me. This is why I'm a PC gamer. I struggle on anything less than 60 FPS. It really hurts my eyes and gives me such a severe migraine. Donkey Kong, I loved that game. In the majority of the cases, it ran 60 FPS, but every time I did a boss battle, I'd have to quit the game for a bit because of the pain I was in. So yeah, Donkey Kong's a good one for you to find out if you can actually handle frame dips and stuff like that. But if you can, you'll get a great game out of it. And I understand, obviously, as I said earlier, and this is going to be the final thing, this doesn't need to be a chapter, cost is definitely one of those things that makes all of this a problem. Gaming is expensive, but long term it can actually be kind of cheap, at least compared to a lot of things. Apologies if I actually mentioned this in this video. Again, I've recorded this that many times. If you look at how much money to, like, if you simply go from pounds/dollars spent ratio of hours played, it turns out where it's like, hey, I've paid 50p for an hour of gameplay, you know, versus I've paid £16 to see a movie once in a cinema. I understand all of this still means you have to foot up a bill at the start, and getting a Switch 2, getting Breath of the Wild, and its DLC, which I do recommend because the DLC is fantastic, especially for the story. I cried so much with it. Getting the Mario Kart bundle if you can, because it saves a little bit of money. And again, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is definitely the game I'd recommend for a racing game out of Mario Kart World, but Mario Kart World's the current one, and 8 Deluxe took 10 years for it to get to the point where it was the best Mario Kart game. I have faith that they're not going to give up on World and they're going to add some cool stuff to it, so I would recommend that. It's also more current, it also means that you'd have things to play online. Getting a Pro Controller and getting Nintendo Switch Online. you're roughly talking just under 700, maybe 750. I understand that seems like a colossal cost, and it is, but everything's going up in price. Technology definitely, because of the AI boom, it's causing RAM and GPU prices to go up. GPU is the thing that basically runs the graphics on a PC. For easier terms, CPU would be the processor, GPU would be the graphics card. All of this stuff's going up in price, but the Switch 2 at this moment in time is a pretty decent deal for what it is, and there's going to be a lot of people who might say, oh, wait until the OLED version. OLED is a kind of screen that you might be aware of. Nintendo lost money when they made the Switch 1 OLED, lost a lot of money, and the way things are going, they're only raising prices. Even if they make an OLED version, it might be $1,000. Like, legitimately, before you buy anything else. So, yeah, I think I'm done with this video, and I really hope this one goes up. Ultimately, I've waffled in different places, so it's still actually been shorter than the last time I did it. But, yeah, until the next time, which I don't even know what the next vid will be. I don't even know if you'll see this. This has been Azure Sky, aka Sky Fellowship, the channel name. And until the next time, bye.